Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of the Free the Law podcast. I am your host, as always, Vice President and co-founder Brian Festa. I am also an attorney with a background in civil rights and constitutional law, labor and employment law as well. But I want to talk today specifically about the issue of medical kidnapping, which I have termed is a scourge on America. It is one of the worst crises facing this country right now. And unfortunately, it's one that gets very little attention in the mainstream media. Most people don't even know it's happened if it hasn't happened to them or someone they love. Most people don't even know what it is. When I say the term medical kidnapping, and I've said it to even people that are familiar with the health freedom movement, people that I'm connected with in health freedom circles and other constitutional law, areas of constitutional law activism, they don't even know what I'm talking about when I say medical kidnapping. So what do I mean by that? What I mean generally is when the state takes away a child or children from a family simply because that family makes a medical choice, a health decision for their children that is contrary perhaps to one doctor, the opinion of one physician or a medical provider, clinician, or contrary to a recommendation of a state official, and decides to do something, an alternative route of treatment, or decides to refuse a treatment, to refuse a drug, or refuse a vaccine. And because of that decision is attacked, is targeted, and the state comes in, either in some states it's CPS, in other states it's called DCF, or something else, whatever acronym they use, the state officials come in and take the children, remove custody, place the child in state custody, usually ends up in foster care, not usually with a family member in many cases, ends up in foster care, often far away from the parents. And then we have to fight. We here at We the Patriots USA have taken this up as an initiative to end medical kidnapping in America. And so we have to fight to get the children back. Well, today I want to give you an update, a victory here. We already had a victory in this case, but this is a second victory in this case, the case of Amanda and Paul Guidry of Missouri. And they had all four of their minor children stolen from them by the state in 2023, simply because they chose an alternative medical treatment for their son. Their son, who at the time I believe was 6 years old, nonverbal, autistic, and they were using a treatment known as chlorine dioxide, diluted solution, following the recommended dosages, seeing no harmful side effects, in fact, seeing improvement in some of his symptoms, motor skills, and some of his other things that they were trying to treat with regard to his autism. But yet, because that is considered alternative, and because one pediatrician, as I understand it, said that it could be potentially dangerous, had all four of their minor children, including, of course, that child with autism, taken away, placed into foster care. Horrible story. We were able to get the children back home to the parents, to Amanda and Paul, within, I believe, 6 weeks of what I call their abduction. And that is in part to the great work of the attorneys that I'm bringing in today, and that's Chris Schilt and Melinda Clark-Sand. And while we're at it, we'll bring the Guidrys onto the screen as well. Amanda and Paul are here. We're all here today to give you an update about this case. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. So, Amanda and Paul, I want to start with you. And by the way, just so everybody knows, you're not being disconnected. At certain points, people will come on screen. I'll give you the full screen while you're talking. Nobody needs to just watch the rest of us listening to you. So at certain points, it'll go full screen, then it'll go back to this, just so that you know. But I want to start, Amanda and Paul, just walk us through briefly what happened. For those that don't know, there are many followers of ours here at the Patriots USA, of course, that do know your story. Of course, anybody wants updates on that story, wants to go back and read the history, the articles, you can go to wethepatriotsusa.org. You can find all the work we're doing to end kidnapping in America. Again, wethepatriotsusa.org. But Amanda and Paul, if you would be so kind just to walk us through exactly what happened in 2023 when your children were taken from their home, obviously against your consent, without your consent, placed in state custody, and how we were able to get the children back. Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me right now?
Yes.
I don't see them responding. Chris and Melinda.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, you can hear me. So if you could tell your story of what happened, how your children were taken away, and how you're going to get them back.
Okay. We have no sound, guys.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. So you're not able to hear me? You can't hear me?
I don't think Paul and Amanda can hear anything. They said they had no sound.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I
if
just
you,
saw her. She said this. They have no sound.
okay, I'm not sure what's happening. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties. Chris,
Yes.
could you start by telling the story and hopefully they can reconnect?
Sure. So we got involved with Paul and Amanda, and hopefully we'll get this resolved soon so that they can tell the story from their own mouth. Paul and Amanda have wonderful children, one of them being Jackson Guidry, who has autism and was diagnosed with that in the process of this case. But they knew at the time, going through the COVID era, that there were issues that they had associated with his behavior that they knew were issues and signs of autism. And based on their research of trying to do everything that they could for their child at the time, not being able to get him fully diagnosed and to see a doctor because it was during COVID and you couldn't either go in person to see a doctor, or it took forever to actually get an appointment. They did research as to alternative things that they could do for his diet, for his environment, anything that they could do to try to treat him for this. And they ran across a treatment that utilized chlorine dioxide, and that was being done by various people throughout the country, and they were seeing results associated and improvements in the autistic children at the time. And so they explored that option. They did as much research.
I just want to make sure that they can hear. They have sound now. You have sound?
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Yes,
Oh,
I can hear you.
Maybe we should have them tell the story.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure they were connected properly. No, you're doing great. Thank you. We'll bring you back in just a moment. So Amanda and Paul, we just wanted to know if you could tell your story.
We just lost sound again.
Okay.
I don't know what just happened. We can't hear anything.
Okay. So we're having some technical difficulties. Chris, I'm going to bring you back. I'm sorry, they lost sound again. I'm not sure.
Still
what's
nothing.
happening. Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening. I'm going to just try to do this and see if you can get me. Yeah. So apparently they're having some issues. Just go ahead, Chris. We'll try to get this worked out. I apologize to the audience as well.
Okay. I will continue until this gets resolved. After doing an enormous amount of research on chlorine dioxide, the side effects associated with it, the proper protocols, the proper treatment dosage that was working in autistic children, Paul and Amanda decided to give it a shot with their own son. And upon purchasing the chlorine dioxide solution, they first tried that on themselves for several weeks, or I think it was up to a month, to make sure that they didn't experience any unwanted side effects based on the treatment. And then they began administering that to their son Jackson, and almost immediately they saw improvements in his behavior, in his ability to speak, in his ability to be potty trained. He stopped having tantrums, and they were able to take him out in public, and just had nothing but wonderful results associated with that treatment. He experienced no side effects from the administration of the chlorine dioxide. And so they did what they felt was the best thing that they could do as parents for this child in trying to come up with treatments in order to help his quality of life improve. They were fully aware and fully able to immediately stop the treatment if there would have been any type of side effect, but that was not happening in this case. And so they continued the treatment because they were seeing the wonderful results that were happening in his case. What happened? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So how did the state get involved? How did they become aware of this? And how did this escalate to the point of taking the children?
I think what escalated it to that level is there were some people, I believe, at Jackson School who had heard that Amanda was giving Jackson, the way they would word it was giving him bleach as part of his treatment. And chlorine dioxide is not bleach. So this was an uninformed opinion of what was happening. And so they would call the state and basically hotline the family based on their opinion that the family was giving this child bleach and making him take that in water in order to, treat his autistic position. And so therefore, because a hotline was made, the state is required to do an investigation. And that is kind of what led to their ultimate removal of the children from the home.
So, Amanda and Paul.
Say that again. Sorry.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I want to bring you back in. Tell us a little bit about the improvements that you were seeing with Jackson using the chlorine dioxide, some of the improvements to his health, and tell us a little bit about what the state said, like when you first made contact with the state and what their justification was for taking your children away.
So the symptoms right away, he was less violent, less agitated. He started talking, was a big one, because before that he wasn't really talking at all. And the more we gave him the chlorine dioxide, the better his symptoms were. And when we got in touch with the state, they told us that it's poison and we weren't allowed to give it to him, and that the FDA doesn't approve of it, so we had to stop.
Okay, and so how did it escalate to the point of, okay, we're taking not only Jackson, but we're taking all four of your minor children away from you, placing them in foster care? How did it escalate from that, especially given the fact that, from all indications, there was no abuse to your son or anyone else in the home? How did it escalate to all of a sudden they're going to foster care?
The agent just decided, even with the officer saying that there's no signs of any kind of abuse or any kind of harm to any of the children, the agent just decided that they're unsafe in this environment, that we're causing damage to our kids, and they have to be removed immediately.
They said we were poisoning him.
Yeah.
And so, I think a lot of people listening and watching are having trouble, are struggling, especially those hearing the story for the first time. So we do have a lot of new listeners and followers. They're struggling with the idea of how a single agent, a single state official can make a decision that even though there's no medical evidence that there's any harm to your child, there's no blood test, there's no x-rays, there's nothing showing that there's any harm, there's no bruises, no bleeding, no broken bones. How can they take your children from? Most people don't think that can happen. Most people don't think it can happen and until it happened to you, maybe you didn't think it could happen, right?
Right.
But most people don't think there's any way that you can take a child or children away from loving parents, which obviously you are, when there's no evidence of abuse or neglect. These kids aren't starving. They're not like walking around in rags or, found running around outside. Like you hear some stories, the child was found half naked, starved, skinny, running around out down the street. That wasn't happening here. There was nothing like that. There's no neglect. There's no abuse. So they're just wondering how did that make you feel as parents when that happened?
It was heartbreaking, and like on top of it, the caseworker, she was only like 20 years old, and she had no idea. Does not have kids. She did not anything like that. And the fact that some kid could come in and take our kids for no reason, saying we were abusing, when it was the exact opposite. We put in months of research before deciding to give Jax the chlorine dioxide. We took it ourselves for months before giving it to him. We would never, like, the fact that just anybody could come and take our kids for just because they want to, because the state gives them permission.
She was able to come in with no experience raising her own children, fresh out of classes or college or whatever courses it is that they go through for DCS or whatever it's called now, and was just able to make any kind of decision that she wanted with no expertise whatsoever about raising a child let alone a child like Jackson, but she just had nothing. Sorry, I'm at a loss for words on that.
That's mind-boggling to me still, and I've been doing this work for years now. I've been involved with other cases of kidnapping. We've had parents come to us, and we had a couple of cases in Connecticut where simply because the mother declined one vaccination at a well visit, said, I don't want to give this vaccination to my child right now. All of a sudden, DCF is coming in. We're doing a home investigation, threatening to take the child away. For no other reason, but they declined a single vaccination. I mean, this is a massive, massive abuse of power, in my opinion. It's massive government overreach. The government should not. Here's how I'm going to get on my soapbox for a minute, but people are used to that who watch me, right? People should not have the ability. No single person, I don't care if you're the president of the United States, you should not have the ability to take a child away from a parent without any substantiated evidence of abuse or neglect, and without that child being in any imminent danger of harm. There was no imminent danger. They had no evidence. All I ever saw from the records was a single letter from one pediatrician that you had seen, I think, at one point, that said she believed this was dangerous. This could be potentially harmful. But that's not enough evidence, because I could give you a letter from I can give you letters from 10 other pediatricians or other doctors and experts that say that it's completely harmless or that it's beneficial what they're doing.
You don't want to see any of that.
You can't be judge, jury, and executioner, as the saying goes, one person. You can't put that much power in one person's hands, all right? And we don't, this isn't a monarchy, anything like that. This is supposed to be a government of laws and a government that respects the rights and the will of the people. This is a government by the people, of the people, for the people, right? As the saying goes, if I got that right. But that's what this is. That's what this country was built on. And this doesn't seem like it's serving the rights of the people right now. So in a state like Missouri, people were particularly, when we first broke this news back in 2023, which, yes, believe it or not, this was 3 years ago, folks. People were absolutely flabbergasted as to how this could happen in a so-called red state, a conservative state, a state that supposedly respects the Constitution. And listen, Andrew Bailey has done some great things. I'm not saying, it's great AG. There's a lot of good things that have come out of Missouri. Missouri is a good state in a lot of ways. I'm not here to bash Missouri. Okay, I've never lived there, but I do want to say there's a lot of good people and there's good people living in government. But that doesn't mean there's still not corruption. That doesn't mean there's still not bad things that happen even here where I live in Idaho, which is, again, hailed as a freedom capital now of the United States. We have a Medical Freedom Act we passed, first state to ban vaccination mandates, even though they'll tell you in the news it's Florida. It actually isn't. Florida didn't pass it. Idaho passed the law. But guess what? There's a lot of corruption, a lot of bad things happening here too. So people need to be aware of this. Don't think that if you move to a supposedly free state, that everything's going to be hunky-dory and you're going to be completely safe. So this is where I want to bring in, if you don't mind, Amanda and Paul, I want to bring in Chris and Melinda into this conversation at this point. And Chris and Melinda, and I'll bring you back on in just a moment, and then we call. But first and foremost, I want to talk about, from a legal standpoint, how is this legal in the state of Missouri? How is this not a violation of basic human rights? I'm not even talking about constitutional rights. I'm not even talking about state law. But how is it not a violation of basic human rights? To have children taken away from you without any evidence of abuse, neglect, or imminent harm to your child.
Well, that's a loaded question, Brian. I think that first off, no one is the belief that these medical providers are relying on is that they do believe that there is harm. They believed that in this particular case with the Guidrys, they believe that the administration of the chlorine dioxide to alleviate Jackson's severe autism behaviors. They believe that, according to their data and information they've received from the FDA and other government agencies, that that substance would eventually cause harm, physical harm to Jackson. We, of course, continue to argue that there was no actual physical harm and that we actually had other physicians. So like you talked about earlier, we did have another physician. Thank God that was something that really helped save their case, is that we were able to bring in another physician to give a second opinion in regards to the safety of chlorine dioxide and how it was therapeutic in these cases for Jackson. But, typically, like you said earlier, parents don't get the opportunity to bring in a second opinion. They don't get an opportunity to go out and find their own independent medical provider to give different testimony that would be helpful to them. That is an area that we're working on in Missouri and Kansas both, where we're trying to change the laws in those areas so that parents would be allowed to bring in a second opinion doctor. But as of right now, they don't have that ability to do that. So what we've got, like you just said, the state through these state agencies, these child protection, DFS agencies that are operating through these, they're operating through physicians who are mandated reporters. And the mandated reporters are saying that we are acting in good faith. We thought that, again, in the case of the Guidrys, that chlorine dioxide was going to harm him. We had all the data that, we didn't do the research, but when we looked at the data and the reports from the CDC and FDA, we were told that this was a substance that is considered toxic and that there was no safe use for it. And so we just followed, in good faith, we followed the medical journals and the data that was accessible to us at the time. And that's pretty much in a nutshell how we got to where we work today.
Okay, so just so everyone knows too, before I proceed, Melinda and Chris were the attorneys who are actually, we retained for the Guidrys. We the Makers USA, where we come in, we funded this litigation, but when we don't have attorneys in a particular state, we don't have licensed attorneys in every state yet. We hope to get there someday, but we don't have attorneys that work for us directly in every state. We contract with outside firms. So we found two of the best in Missouri, in my opinion, doing excellent work. Melinda Clarkson and Chris Shields at Right Side Law. I got that right, didn't I? Right Side Law LLC. They're excellent attorneys. If you're in Missouri, look them up. If you need help, they'll be on the right side of the law. I love the name of the law firm. And I love that it's not just like, Clarkson and Shields, like every other law firm, just the names. Because We the Makers USA is actually a nonprofit public interest law firm. People who are a nonprofit, we're also a law firm. And so we like to choose a name that represents what we do, not just my name. I don't want just my name on the firm, right? So I love that humility, and I love the fact that you're on the right side of the law. So little plug there for you, but they did amazing work. We couldn't have done this by ourselves. And yes, the donors, you who supported this work and gave to the Patriots USA are why we were able to do this, to be able to fund this litigation, pay for legal expenses. So ultimately, it comes back to people. But obviously, we need attorneys to actually do the work, right? To actually grow up their sleeves, get in there in court before judges, and make the arguments and represent these parents. You did a great job advocating for them. So thank you so much for all the work you've done these last 3 years. I didn't want this interview to go by without me giving you the props that you deserve, both of you, because I had a lot of conversations with you both. Chris, I talked to a lot in the beginning, and then I met Melinda online. I've never met either of you in person, believe it or not. We've done all this work these last 3 years. We've worked together and had this wonderful working relationship. But I've never met in person. That's what I love about Patriots USA, is we find these amazing attorneys all over the United States and are able to connect them with our clients, fund the litigation, and get justice for these families. So luckily, fortunately, by divine grace, we were able to get these children home. And then I give all glory to God, number one. All right, we were able to get these children home within 6 weeks, which was light and fast. But then we had another battle on our hands. So you brought in the expert, the children weren't being harmed, the children were eventually returned within 6 weeks. But there was another battle, wasn't there? There was a battle, Amanda and Paul, where you were put on the state's registry of perpetrators, as the judge called it in the recent decision, as I saw. I didn't realize it was called that. It's actually called the Registry of Perpetrators in the state of Missouri. And in the state of Missouri, isn't it true, Chris, Melinda, that you can get placed on that registry even without any kind of criminal conviction of abuse or neglect? If there was suspected abuse or neglect and your children were taken from you, you can be placed on that child abuse registry. And Amanda and Paul had their names on that for the last 3 years. How did that's correct, right? Am I correct in stating that, Melinda and Chris?
Yes, that's correct.
So how did that make you feel? I mean, how did anyone feel, right? Having their names publicly, because that's a public registry, I believe, correct?
Yes.
Having your name on a public registry as a child abuser, when you never abused your children and there was never any evidence and there was never any conviction of child abuse and neglect. How did that make you feel, Amanda and Paul?
Go ahead.
It was horrible. And beyond that, just our names being on this list, it interferes with us interacting with our kids at school. Like, if you're on this list, you can't go to certain school functions, you can't volunteer at this school, you can't work for this school. All of this, it affected all of that. And we've always been very involved in our kids' school lives, and the fact that we couldn't, it
was very nerve-wracking just waiting for it to randomly pop up in our life, that someone would come across it and say something about it, and then boom, now everything starts all over again, and you're not supposed to be here. And we had quite a few kids, being able to not go to functions would have hindered a lot of our lives.
I can only imagine, as a parent of two myself, I can only imagine how that would make you feel, and unjustly, right? Because it's one thing, again, when someone actually has been convicted with evidence, they've had their day in court, they've had due process, and if there is a conviction, that's the law, and I have no problem with that when there's a conviction. I have a big problem with when there was no due process, and there was no evidence, no jury, no bench trial even, no conviction, and then suddenly you're labeled, your name is mud in the community. You are labeled a perpetrator. And again, that word comes back. That really sticks with me. You were labeled a perpetrator by the state of Missouri when there was no evidence that you were a perpetrator. In any other context, if we weren't dealing with state officials, that would be defamation, correct? Melinda, yes, that would be actionable defamation, stating something that's untrue publicly, and publishing that for the world to see that you abused a child. You'd be liable for libel. And if there were public statements made verbally, That would be, slander. But it would be liable in this case because you published something. The state published something saying they are perpetrators, even though there was no evidence that wasn't true.
Right.
They do quite a bit of damages for defamation. But in the state of Missouri, you can't do that, right? Like in most states, you can't just go out and sue state officials because they have what's called qualified immunity. Melinda?
Yeah. Well,
to that briefly.
Yeah, I will. I think just to let's just step back for a minute and talk about the what are the qualifications to be placed on the registry? Because the child abuse registry, there are actually two different ways that the state of Missouri can substantiate abuse. And it can be done either through what's called, an adjudication process where you are actually, you do go before a court, you go before a judge, and there is evidence that is put on during a court hearing, and then that process is what's considered the adjudication, and the judge would decide whether or not that child needed to be placed in custody because there was some type of abuse or neglect that occurred. Then there's this other method of getting on the registry that is a lot more convoluted and confusing. And I think that's where the Guidrys, if I'm not mistaken, they fell in that second, I guess, category where the registry, where you can be placed on the registry by having a finding of a child abuse social worker that makes a finding as sort of an administrative finding that does not have to go through the courts and does not have to, you don't have the same type of protections in regards to evidentiary issues that are present when we go to court and we have an adjudication hearing. You don't have any of that, obviously, when you just have a social worker or an investigator in the office that says, hey, I conducted this investigation, and based upon that investigation, we've come to this conclusion, or we've made these findings. And I think that that's ultimately what got Paul and Amanda Guidry on the registry, even though there were still some gray areas there that I think legally Chris and I did not fully agree with. Would you say that's a correct assessment of what happened with the Guidrys, Chris?
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly with that. And the fact that they are placed on the registry without ever getting to even answer to the allegation. So the registry they never spoke to Paul or Amanda before they were being placed on there. And we've spoken to other families who never even knew they were placed on the registry until they possibly went to apply for a job, and they found out that way. So it's very sad and very telling that this needs to be changed. When you have no way of defending any false accusations, but that you can be placed on the registry, by the hand of one person who wants to make that allegation without being able to defend yourself is just not justice.
Right, exactly. And I think that, just to be clear, it's the social workers or the investigators that work for the Child Protective Service. They're the ones that, at the conclusion of their investigation, they make those findings, and that's just a done deal. And so that's sort of in a quick way to get there, so to speak. And that's where I believe, like I said, Paul and Amanda, they fell into that category. And then I apologize, Brian, you asked another question, and I just wanted to circle back to how they got on the registry, because I know that can be confusing.
No, I mean, I probably forgot actually the exact question I asked too, but I do want to say, one thing you just said struck me when you said that's a quick way to get there. There should be no quick way to get there. when it comes to placing someone on a register. There should be no denial of due process, which I firmly believe there was in this case, a denial of due process. And arguably, this is worse in many cases than many kinds of criminal convictions, right?
Yeah.
Because not a criminal conviction for child abuse. I'm talking about other lesser offenses that you could have a drug charge or a theft charge, larceny or something like that. Those kinds of criminal convictions aren't going to stick with you as long as being publicly shamed for child abuse and having that registry. Guess what? Once something's on the internet, as we all know, it doesn't go away. All right. Luckily, the three of us grew up in a time where things did not stay on things weren't recorded. Our whole lives weren't constantly recorded, right? But now it is. And now anything that's put on the internet, and when I was younger, of course, there wasn't even an internet when I was a child. So, but now everything that anyone does is put on the internet and it's there forever. Someone can screenshot it, download that page, whatever. They can share that forever. Say, okay, well, they're not in the registry now, but look, they were from 2023 to 2026. And so that is extremely damaging. And I say that not to take away from what I'm about to announce, the victory that we just won about a week ago. I say that not to take away from it, not to discourage Amanda and Paul, of course, but to say this needs to change. Something needs to change in the law, not only in Missouri, but all across the country, because this happens in other states too, right? So we have a wonderful victory to announce. After 3 years, after 3 long years, longest for Amanda and Paul, no doubt. After 3, they had to live it. They had to live with that scarlet letter, that stigma. So after 3 long years, we fought. We continued fighting. We continued funding. You continued donating. You are supporters out there. And last week, a decision came out from the court, from a judge in Missouri, that I'm not going to say, I don't want to use the word exonerated, but it removed them from the registry. It removed them from the registry. They are no longer on the registry. And that has been such a long road. This was a hard battle to fight. A lot of people who followed us back in 2023 maybe even forgot about this case. But I guarantee you, Amanda and Paul didn't forget about it. And so, how did you feel when you got the news of that decision that you were going to be removed from the registry? Amanda and Paul?
Relief.
My heart dropped. Then when they told me about it, they told it so slow. I wanted to just throw my phone. She gave me the news so slow and dramatic too. It was horrible. But yeah, my heart sank when they gave me that news, and it was finally all over with.
Well, I mean, it's probably in some ways maybe a news that you maybe didn't ever think you were going to get because you've been fighting this for so long. The legal process is long. This is what I have to remind people always when it comes to our work here at Patriots USA. Some of our supporters get a little patient, right? It's human nature. We want instant gratification. When they donate, they want to see immediately that I announce like the next week a victory. Amanda and Paul are exonerated. Their children are back. Like, and you would have wanted it immediate too.
Yeah.
All right, but that's not how the law works. Okay, you have to go through. And what strikes me about this is I'm going to try to contain myself because this gets me really upset. I just finished saying how you were denied due process. You were denied your day in court to truly defend yourself before you were ever placed on the registry, right? That's true. You didn't get a chance to defend yourself and say, listen, we should not be placed on the registry because of X, Y, and Z, and truly stop it before the harm was done. But yet, they got their day in court, didn't they? The state got their due process. They got to have years of hearings over this. They got to have 6 weeks before your children, which is an eternity for a parent. It's lightning fast in the medical kidnapping world, but for a parent, 6 hours away from your children is an eternity. 6 weeks is hell.
Yes.
Okay? It's the only way to describe it. But they got their due process. They got 3 years worth of hearings and motions and whatever they wanted to file before you were removed. And I will say exonerated. The judge didn't say you were being exonerated, but I'm going to say it. Okay, you're exonerated because there's no evidence here. Okay, there's no evidence here, in my opinion,
There never was.
In my opinion, you were exonerated before this even started because there was no evidence, okay? But you were finally removed from that registry, but they kept their day in court to do that. They got all of their due process, but you didn't get your due process rights. And that's where I have, as a lawyer, not just as a parent, a human, but as a lawyer, I have a constitutional lawyer, a civil rights lawyer, I have a very big problem with that when it's one-sided justice, when the state has more rights than the people. Okay, if anything, it should be the other way around. The people hold most of the power. We're a government of limited powers. The people hold the rights and most of the power. That's the government we're supposed to have, right? But it doesn't seem like that happened. However, again, I'm going to focus on the positive. You did get removed, okay? And I want to ask you, what would you say if you have a message that you want to send to all of our supporters that stuck with you, that donated, some of them quite a bit of money, to support this fight, to not only get your children home, but to get you removed from the registry. If you have a message you'd like to give to them right now.
Thank you for all of your support. It's been a long 3 years, and we couldn't have done it without y'all. We couldn't have done it without any of y'all, Brian, Melinda, Chris. Y'all have been amazing. And it makes me wonder how many parents have gone through this that didn't have this kind of support. We were so blessed to find We the Patriots, and you guys, you saved our lives, and we appreciate you so much. All of y'all, the supporters, everything. Like, God bless you. You saved our lives.
I can't add anything to that. That's perfect.
Well, we're happy to do it. This is what we exist for. That's the reason why my co-founder, Don Jolly, she and I founded this organization, because we wanted to help people like you, people who had nowhere else to turn and who were being victimized and oppressed. I know those are terms we often hear on the political left, right? Guess what? People who are being sometimes, very often these days, most victimized and oppressed are just ordinary, everyday Americans trying to do right by their children, trying to raise their children right, trying to protect their children, raise them according to their own values, teach them their faith and about God and everything. I just, my heart goes out to you. I couldn't be happier with the result, but I couldn't be more disappointed and more just kind of torn up about the fact that you've had to endure this for the last 3 years. I really wish that this had never happened. As great as it was that we won a victory, and that hopefully it sets a precedent and a warning shot across the bow to any other state officials in Missouri or elsewhere that want to do this. We have a case going on in Florida with a little girl's over 2.5 years now, has been separated from her mom just because her mom refused the drug that has an FDA black box warning for liver failure and death, and just wanted to use the other treatment she was using, and she didn't even refuse the drug. She just wanted time to get second opinions, to try other things. She didn't say she wasn't going to use it, but just because she didn't use it immediately, the doctor reported her to DCF, and they took the children away. And the social workers in that video, the body cam footage was released by someone else, not by us, but the body cam footage when the police came with the social workers to take that child away, little Kenley, 7 years old. She was 5 at the time, I believe. She's 7 now. They were laughing. They were laughing and smiling as they went into the house to take this little girl away. As the mother is crying, as the child is crying, clinging to her mother, they were laughing. And so we got the attention of the Governor's Chancellor's office. We called them out. We called out the whole state and the government of Florida for holding themselves up to the champions of medical freedom, health freedom, parental rights, and yet this was going on in their watch. So we'll call anyone out. Just because people think that, oh, you're patriotic, that means you must be conservative, you love all Republicans. I call anyone out, and I don't care who you are, I don't care what party you are, left, right, independent. If you're violating the Constitution and violating parental rights and health freedom and religious liberty, you're going to get called out. We'll do it on the biggest platform that we have. Which is probably the biggest bullhorn, but we'll do it as much as we can. So anyway, I want to wrap. Because I don't want to go too long. I know people's time is short here, and I want to respect that. But I want to bring everyone back into the party and just say thank you so much once again from me. Thank you for staying the course. And then Paul, thank you, Chris and Melinda, again, for your zealous advocacy and stellar representation of your clients, Amanda and Paul. And this, again, it's a happy ending, bittersweet in some ways because they had to endure it, but it is a victory. I don't want to take anything away from that because a lot of these cases don't end the same way. A lot of these cases, the children never come home. A lot of these cases, the parents never get removed from the child abuse registry. So again, it was worth fighting for, and your money went to very good use. All of you who donated to this cause, every penny that donated to that fundraiser, by the way, was given directly to the attorneys to pay for the legal fees, 100%. We didn't make any money off this case. We don't exist to make money. We exist to save children and to stand up for constitutional rights, parental rights, human rights here in this case. So I just want to thank everybody. Melinda, Chris, do you have anything else to add maybe about where do we go from here in the future as far as changes to the law in Missouri or elsewhere? What needs to be changed so this doesn't happen again?
You're on mute.
I do that all the time. Don't worry.
Here we go. Yes, Brian, Chris and I are working very closely with several legislators in Missouri and Kansas both to change the law. So I tell people that we as your attorneys, we are only as good as the toolbox that we have available to us. We are looking at changing the law in regards to allowing parents to go get a second opinion. I think I talked about that earlier, where they can find their own independent doctor or medical provider. And if that doctor or medical provider has a different opinion than the initial doctor or provider, then that parent will have the right to call that doctor as a witness and bring that in as testimony to help the parent show that what they're doing, or that the refusal of not wanting a certain treatment is not going to cause harm to their child. Let's see, we're also looking at hopefully changing the law in a way so that this is not considered to be a strictly civil procedure. So that's when you talked earlier, Brian, about like due process and the Guidry's and a lot of parents not having those constitutional protections in place. That's mainly because these family court proceedings are not considered criminal in nature, even though ultimately you can lose custody, and even you could even lose your parental rights as a parent. So those are extreme consequences, and I don't know why it's not categorized as something, at least what we would call quasi-criminal. So maybe not, it wouldn't be categorized as high as, hey, you've been charged with murder. But we do feel like parents need a lot more protections than what they're given just with the basic civil procedure rules that we have in place. So that's another thing we're fighting for. We're fighting for that with the changes in the law that we're trying to get, passed right now. And trying to think, let's see, the second opinion, that's a big one. The quasi-criminal categorization of these cases. Any, Chris, did I miss?
Another thing that we're trying to change is a lot of people that are accused of abuse with the state are not given access to medical records associated with those children. And we don't think your medical record should ever be kept from you. So that's just another piece of the puzzle that we're trying to change and protect those rights.
Well, God bless you. Thank you so much for doing that. And let us know if we can help in any way. We don't really get involved in legislative lobbying too much because it's a 501c3. We're limited can do. But I see Jackson is there.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Wow.
Good.
I'm
And
so
my
happy to see you
My
guys.
birthday is December 14th.
Yeah.
Wow.
How do you hear
Yes,
that?
so
How old is he?
He's 9.
Yeah,
He's going to be
9.
10.
He's 9. You're going to be 10, double digits. That's a
Yeah.
big one. But
Wow.
coming up. I know. It seems like just yesterday my son was turning 10. Now he's about to turn 15. So
Oh, goodness.
high school. I don't want
We
to
have one of those.
all right. Well, hey, it's nice to see you there, and hopefully you're enjoying your summer before you go back to school. You're going to be going into probably, is it 3rd grade or
You're in 4th grade, huh?
yeah,
4th?
I'm 4th grade.
You're a big kid.
Wow.
You like school?
Yeah.
Like school.
Yeah.
Just leave
All right. Well, thanks for joining us.
Yep.
Hello. That was great. I'm glad you could bring him on. And that's all I have for today. If anyone else wants to say anything else, that's fine. But I want to just thank everybody for, again, supporting these efforts, for watching, to learn more at WeThePatriotsUSA.org. It's right there on the screen. I again, appreciate everybody's support, your ongoing support of our mission. One-time donations, monthly donations are especially helpful. Even if it's only $5, $10 a month, because that helps with the budget. And so when new clients come to us, because we get medical kidnapping cases from all over the country, people still contacting us today saying, we really, we have a situation similar to what happened in Gidry, or similar to what happened to, Kenley and Joy in Florida, or the case I mentioned, cases in Connecticut, timely vaccination, and they ask for help. That hinges on, what we can do hinges on funding. It all hinges on funding because, unfortunately, that's the world we live in. It's about money. If you don't have money to defend yourself, you don't have resources, it's going to be very hard to win these battles. So anything you can do, WeThePatriotsUSA.org. Thank you, Amanda and Paul. Thank you, Melinda and Chris. And God bless all of you. I'm really happy that we were able to come together today and give this update. This is the update that I've been waiting to give for 3 years. So God bless you, and just I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Amanda and Paul. It was our pleasure to represent you. And considering what all they've been through, they were actually very good clients. They had a rough go of it, but it was our pleasure. And we feel like we are so glad that the Lord stepped in and intervened the way he did. Brian, I don't know if you know this or not, but they were going to be on that list in Missouri. When you're put on that list, it's a lifetime deal. So they would have been on there for their entire lifetime. So we are so thankful.
Praise God. This happened again. All glory and honor to God. And
yes.
Thank you all for everything that you did. And with that, I'm going to sign off. But again, I thank you for your time. And God bless you all. And God bless everyone watching.
God bless you. Thank you, everyone.